Susan Day, Katherine Hellman from Who's the Boss, among many other things, and a lot of other folks recognizable in the cast. Cage Without a Key, 1975. Probably not one of my typical sort of movies to review, though I was recently binging. In preparation for a review, I was finishing up the Starman television series free on Crackle. Crackle is a really great service. I recommend it. Lots of older stuff in particular, a little bit of commercials, but because of that, everything is included. You just watch the episodes for free, no subscription charge. But it recommended to me a lot of good classics like The Blob, and is it 20 Million Miles to Earth or whatever that full title is. And then it recommended Cage Without a Key, probably because I had also was planning on watching Partridge Family, which Susan Day was in. I vaguely remember as a little kid it being on, so I am looking forward to watching a little bit of that at some point. Cage Without a Key is sort of like almost rated R, I would think, certainly close to it, if not rated R after school special. It was something that I turned on. There was nothing on my list that I felt compelled to watch, and I was eating dinner, so I turned this movie on, free on Crackle, and I ended up watching the whole thing, and it was really good. It was really well acted. It was really well put together, and it is really a sort of warning, especially prescient 1975, coming out of the 60s. The hippie generation had led to there was a lot of the drug culture and stabbings and assaults and so forth that I remember being on the news when I was real little, and I was 2 when this movie came out. But there's the warning of she's the teenage girl. They're on a trip. Their car breaks down. She decides to ride with another guy that she apparently knows from school, but has a hard time remembering him. Then it turns out that, she kind of knows who he is, but they didn't really know each other like he made out. And of course, everything goes wrong from there. He basically holds her captive in the van. He goes to collect what appears to be some drug money. There's a drug deal going down. He starts introducing her as his old lady. And then finally, when he wants to rob a place because he needs money, he bullies her into going in, sort of being a distraction. For fear of her life, she is captive with him while he commits crimes. He murders the cashier, the owner of a store, after robbing him or in the process of robbing. And then, of course, later on when they're picked up, she is also charged with murder because he's been introducing her to people on the way as his old lady, and because she was too scared to protest, she's sort of caught up in this as a captive against her will. Now, they send her to a girls' reform school, which is sort of the second part of the after-school special. I mean, there's the whole don't get in with a bad crowd because bad things may happen despite the best of your intentions. You may think, well, I'll be with these people, but I'll just say no when the time comes, right? But she just gets simple thing like looking for a ride and thinks she knows the guy, and she ends up pulled into this misadventure that ends up charged with murder. And then the second part of the story is the girls' reform school, which is essentially a prison. And there's a little bit of commentary on, what kind of skills they're giving them, teaching them to be proper young ladies who cook and sew, and all of these classes they have, which is really preparing them for life in the 1950s, but not dealing with the reality that these girls have gangs, they abuse one another, use one another, there's sexual assaults. And for 1975, this is why I say it either is or borders on a rating of R, because they do, though there's no nudity, there is this scene where one of the girls tries to have sex with her, grabs her, kisses her, is fondling her, and her reaction to that of being there's an attempted rape going on, and it doesn't go that far, but you do get a sense of the horror of being in prison without showing us the full horror. Like, it's all implied that this is essentially a women's prison for girls, and that it's not a good system, and it's not a healthy system, and the way they play the system against one another to maintain power between the cliques. So it really is interesting. And ultimately, of course, there's also the third act, I guess you'd say. The third part of the story is the crazy narcissist criminal who intentionally implicated her on the stand in his crimes to keep up the pretense that she was his girlfriend. They effectively, the defense team manages to manipulate him into telling the truth, and she goes free. But this is really sort of, again, for 1975, they capture this on film with great poignancy. Susan Day is visited by her family, her mom and her best friend, and she just doesn't know how to interact with them properly anymore because she's been in prison, because she can't tell them everything that she's been through. And they're talking about, fixing it and getting her out and getting her to school and getting her to prom and all these other things. And she's like, she's living a whole different life now from her perspective already, this short amount of time in prison. And so eventually she's cleared, she's let go, but it leaves you very much with that feeling of what's she going to do now? Because you never ever get over some of the things that has happened to her, or you never look at the world the same. It's a post-traumatic situation that changes your worldview, and that happens in many different ways in life. But hers, it was just being caught up in this because of one innocent but bad decision that led to all of this and this time in prison. And it really ends up being a very still contemporary commentary on what we do with prisons. I am not a leftist. If you've seen any of my videos, you know that. But the system is designed in a way that people that go in, if they're not animals, they are when they come out. We don't really people, and you lump people together like that in places where they can form cliques and bully one another. It's almost unavoidable. I don't know that there's a way to fix that, but certainly there's a lot of people that maybe should be out on a tethered and monitored and working for a living and paying their own way, but out in the world being monitored, that they go from work to home and the store or whatever. I was on one once. Long story. I've been sober for almost 13 years now, but I thought it was great. As much as I hated the thing, I was like, this is the way to go. That people in the future should be monitored like this. If you're not going to spontaneously act out and be violent, you should be out and monitored and not be cooped up with other people that are then abusing one another and making it worse. You are monitored and made to work for a living and travel certain places and take care of things and hopefully get healthy. But even if you don't, you're still making your own way in the world under supervision. And you've essentially waived your right to not be supervised by the crime you committed. But this movie, Caged Without a Key, it really drives home very well, like other movies later, and maybe before that I don't know about. But I thought it did a really good job of the three-part of it, of capturing how wrong everything can go, despite how innocently you proceed, how the system is so messed up once you're in there that you're just herded in with the animals. And her going free, she's traumatized now. And, even though she's found not guilty, she has nothing on her record preventing her from moving on. Imagine people that do something, even if it's not violent, they commit some sort of, and they end up in this pit. And then they're released and told, go make a productive life, when it's harder to get a job and you've got all this trauma of the time that you were raped in the shower or whatever. It's just not effectively logical to the outcome that we're looking for is not served by the things we're doing beforehand. So anyway, I thought it was a really good movie. She did a really good job in it. Definitely worth watching. And it's free on Crackle, a little bit of commercials, not overdone like some of the other services I've seen. A little bit of commercials. Good movie, good message, good stuff. Peace and law and life. I guess this wasn't even science fiction remotely. Oh well. Peace and law and life. Leave any comments below. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Noreen, please get out of my room. I'm better than Tommy Washington.